Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Thank you for some of you expressed concern that I wasn't around yesterday. I'm sorry I was not able to get a video up during the storm because I had worked a double shift with a very short turnaround, and I had to stay overnight uh, at a hotel near my job in Westchester for FiOS One News. So I just did not have enough time to do anything when you're going back and forth between TV and everything else. During a storm, it becomes a little more problematic. But I am okay. Everything's fine. I'm not sick or anything like that. I'm here. And also, thank you. I got my 3,000th subscriber to my YouTube channel, and I'm thrilled about that. So any of you that are here for the first time, welcome to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. And all you have to do is just hit the subscribe button on my YouTube channel page, and you'll get notifications whenever I put up a new video, which is usually at least once a day and more during storm situations, except for what happened yesterday. Okay, so our major winter storm, which dumped 1 to 2 feet of snow throughout areas just inland of the coast. The coastal areas was mainly a 3 to 5 inch snowfall, and along the New Jersey coast, very little. But for Long Island, it was 3 to 5. But you just go to New York City, and it was every bit of 5 to 11. And then just on the other side of the New York City line into the Hudson Valley and throughout much of the northern third of New Jersey, mainly along and north of Route 78. It was 1 to 2 feet. It was 2 foot plus snows in the counties up as you move through the Catskills and the Hudson Valley, and there were 3 foot plus snows in the areas that today are still under winter storm warnings. We have actually winter weather advisories out pretty far to the south because in the areas into southern Pennsylvania that got over 1 foot of snow, and into the mountain, into parts of north central Maryland, although there's no advisory there. But there's a lot of blowing snow going on, restricting visibilities because we have this very intense low and high pressure to the west, and the pressure gradient. You can see the isobars here are extremely tight. So it's a large change in pressure. That's a very deep storm. It's down into the 970s in terms of pressure. Big change in pressure, relatively short distance, very tight pressure gradient, and the winds have been gusting to 30, 40 miles an hour or more as we went through the overnight and now into the daytime hours. I'll just show you here. This is at 10 o'clock this morning, and we've got these strong westerly winds. These are sustained winds at 25. You see gusts at 38, 32, 33, even some inland gusts into the upper 20s. The winds are going to be gusty all day today, and then they're going to gradually diminish as we move through the overnight and into Thursday, but it'll still be breezy. The winds are still going to be a bit on the gusty side until this whole storm gets out of the weather scene and moves away. Now, as we look at the radar, there's still some snows being produced over parts of upstate New York and parts of New England, but the bulk of the storm is pretty much done with. A lot of the warnings remain in effect because of the wind and the blowing and restricting visibilities. We can look at the rest of the country and go out west, where we do have some activity coming in with rain moving into Northern California and into the Pacific Northwest, and we'll take a look at what that all means with regards to the future weather across the United States. Okay, so now that we're on daylight saving time, it's saving and not savings, by the way, but now that we're on DST, which really should be called daylight displacement time. For me, it's really frustrating now because all the weather models come out an hour later, and it really messes up with my schedule in terms of when I have to travel to work, so I don't get to see all the updated models when I try to cut the weather video. So there is a frustrating angle to all this. Now, here's this big storm that is just on the edge of the NAM model, and this cold high that has dropped down into Kentucky and Tennessee and continues to, eventually just kind of stretches down to the Florida Panhandle. The implications here, by the way, is that we've got cold air that goes all the way down into Florida. And this is one of the few times this year that we're actually seeing the cold air being dragged down so far to the south. In fact, we will. I want to take a look at the 2-meter temperatures. One of my friends contacted me this morning to let me know that where he is in along the south central coast here on the east coast of Florida, with temperatures in the upper 40s this morning, and he was a tad upset. And I said, well, you're going to get more upset shortly. But when we look at the temperatures across the south with all this, this was this morning where we had temperatures in the upper 30s and upper 30s, lower 30s, and 20s. But you can see upper 30s across the Florida Panhandle. I mean, this is pretty cold for the almost middle of March. And look at these highs, temperatures barely getting back into the 50s, and you've got 60s in South Florida, so it's pretty cold. Now let's look at tonight when we drop down into the lows by tomorrow morning, and this is the NAM. That's pretty cold. I mean, look, it's got, this is Fort Myers, 39, 37, 40, moving up toward Jacksonville. We see 38, low 30s. I mean, this is really cold air, low and mid 40s across southern Florida. You don't really see that too often this time of year. So, and I don't have it far enough to take us. There's the morning lows roughly, and then after that we're start to warm things up. So one of the consequences of having a weather pattern that favors storms in the eastern part of the United States is that it brings cold air down to the regions to the south. Now let's take a look going forward at what the weather pattern will be, because actually the weather pattern to me looks to remain fairly active over the next week or longer. And we'll go to the overnight GFS upper air, and I'll show you. Let's get a little wider. Here we go. Where are you? Usually after big storms, I get kind of mentally fried for a day or two, but it seems like I came out of this one a lot better. Okay, so we've got actually a weather system that's going to be diving down from another one of these systems that's going to be diving down from the Great Lakes, and you can see it here. The blocking pattern is gone, and we have, for the time being anyway, but we've got a trough in the west, and here's this system diving down into the eastern part of the United States, and you've got this ridge that builds up into the Rockies. So there's a bit of a cold flow there, and one of the things with the European model is that the European model dives this much further south. So we're going to have to watch to see if that means some kind of low development, nothing big, but some kind of low development off the mid-Atlantic coast here for Saturday. The other models take the low down into western New York and redevelop it southeast of Montauk and Nantucket, which would not be any kind of problem for us. But I think there is a chance for a little bit of snow here on Saturday, depending on what goes on. And then as we go forward, there's the jet is the main jet stream is displaced pretty far to the south here. You can see it there, and you've got these troughs that are moving along. You have some semblance of a polar flow here out of Canada to feed in occasional air masses of cold air, and then these weather systems in the southern part of the jet stream just continue to move along. This is actually quite an interesting pattern for this time of year, and it takes us, by the way, to the end of the month. So to me, it kind of implies that it may be not anything extreme in terms of cold, but that temperatures will still probably average colder than normal in the eastern states, in the Northeast in particular, through the end of the month. Whether that means that there's another snow chance or another couple of snow chances in the mix, I don't know yet. But I want to just take you to the European model from last night and just show you the difference on what it was doing with regards to the weekend. So let's take it back here. So here's the storm. Actually, this was yesterday's system, and in hindsight analysis, this was yesterday morning. Here's that southern stream shortwave, and here's the northern one. And one of the issues that we were dealing with over the weekend was where the phasing was going to take place in the trough axis. and it took place just far enough west that we wound up with a coast hugger of a storm rather than something that went out a little bit further to the east. This was a situation that as little as 20 miles, had the low center track 20 or 30 miles further east, instead of getting 3 to 5 inches on Long Island and 5 to 10 inches in New York City, that whole area would have been in the 1 foot snow area. I mean, that's how close this was. The low center itself actually crossed over eastern Long Island because temperatures at Montauk went up almost to 50 yesterday, and had with a south wind, while temperatures west of Riverhead, which is not that far, it's about maybe 30 or so miles, or a little more than that from Montauk itself. From there westward, temperatures were in the 30s for the whole day, and you get into the western part toward New York City, temperatures were below freezing through the whole period. Anyway, so there's that phased system lifted completely up and around, and here's the upper low, which is going to be pulling out tonight to the northeast. Now here's the next one right behind it, and you know, the European would certainly suggest that we'd have to watch this. We've got this upper air trough that dives southeastward, and nice little cutoff there. That's a nice little area of energy that moves into northern Ohio and then moves off the coast east of New Jersey and right off southeastern New England by next Monday. So in this position here, you would possibly have some kind of a low sitting that develops right off the mid-Atlantic coast. And indeed, when we look at the surface of the European, and we'll take a look at that. So let's go to this, and let me just punch that up. And here we go. So here we have the European's view of this, where it has a low that it takes into northern Indiana and down into eastern Virginia. This is suggestive of the possibility of some snow here on Saturday, but it's the only model that's doing this. And by the way, from there it becomes a nice little storm there southeast of Cape Cod. I mean, it probably intensifies a little bit too far out to the east to prevent anything more than a minor snowfall, but I'm sorry, to produce anything more than a minor snowfall. But this is certainly something that the Europeans suggest we have to watch. The problem, though, is when we look at the other models, and it's how the other models handle the upper air in all this. And when we take a look at we're going to go to the GFS. Actually, you know what? I'll leave the colors on because this way you can kind of see it. These are the jet stream. This is the upper air on the GFS for the same time frame, and you can see how the GFS is different. The upper air system is in upstate New York, with the surface low developing right over southeastern Massachusetts. For the same time frame, the European has the upper air system in Ohio, with the low in Virginia, and then off and then that's why then it develops east of Virginia. So that's the primary difference here between all the models. The Canadian is siding with the GFS. The NAM, if the old NAM goes out far enough, it should be able to catch it. The NAM's idea also supports the GFS and Canadian, where it has a low in Lake Ontario and redevelops here off right there as a little surface low right over New York City. And this would be like a little bit of snow and light rain and no big deal. By the way, the NAM model did exceptionally well in this past storm. It really killed it, actually. It was the first model to show a coast hugger, except for one hiccup run along the way. It never really backed off from that, and it was almost spot on, not only in terms of the track, but in terms of where the rain sleet line was. There was a very, very large area of sleet that lasted in some places for hours and hours, and it was absolutely correct with that. It really beat all the other models, and the GFS was the worst of the bunch. It just had a low too far out and too cold, and it was wrong. So the NAM, and I like the NAM model. I use it a lot. I get people that criticize me about using the NAM from time to time, but you know what? Those people at this point really need to just shut up. Okay, the NAM this winter has, for the most part, done very, very well. And here's from last night's, by the way, with this next weather system. You can see there's this warm front that it has that brings in an area of light snow that doesn't amount to too much, and then done. Assuming that the other three models are correct with this track further north and east, and it's not like the European model, which has the low digging down further to the west. So we'll widen out so I can give you a view of what's going to be happening, or what the GFS says, because at least the GFS is one of the model that we have out going the longest. But the GFS from last night, continues to kind of show this pretty active pattern. And by the way, we have a system that's coming into the Pacific Northwest for Saturday. You can see it here on the GFS. There's that eastern system, rain showers to areas to the south, and then another shot of cold air comes into the eastern Great Lakes, northeast and mid-Atlantic for Sunday. And in the west, you've got these weather systems that just kind of come in and move along. So the GFS has another one on Monday approaching the northeast, another little diver with maybe a little low that forms south of Long Island. Here's a storm that's off the west coast that comes in and brings rain and snows to California for later next week. And that translates eventually into a rather deep little storm there in southern Kansas. Now, depending on how much blocking that we have, the model wants to kind of take that low straight east and then redevelop it off the Virginia coast. So that's kind of interesting that we have this sort of storm track here on the GFS in the longer term that takes tracks mainly across the United States, across the South. And the question will be whether there will be cold air masses that will be locking up across southeastern Canada and back up into the western Great Lakes to set up these kind of surfaces that are cold enough to support another snow event or two. Honestly, since we're in a wintry pattern and looking at what the models suggest, if we wind up with another opportunity or two for some snow in the northeast, it certainly would not surprise me. We've clearly flipped the switch at the beginning of the month where the pattern has gotten colder, and until it flips the switch back, we're just going to stay that way. And so while we have temperatures, sorry for that interruption. I said while the pattern is in a wintertime pattern, it's basically just going to stay that way until we see signs of it breaking down. So if we wind up with another couple of snow chances along the way, would not at all surprise me in the least. This is quite interesting that the winter, honestly, I know a lot of snow lovers were not too thrilled with the winter. I actually thought it was quite interesting how it played out. And now that we're into March, we're in now we're into a January pattern. Go figure. All right, folks, we'll call it a day here. You know what? Before we do call it a day, I don't want to forget my friends up in the Canadian Maritimes. So why don't we take a look real fast with what's going on there? Because, a lot of these storms have had impact into southeastern Canada. And in fact, there was one last week, one of the minor snowfall that we had, the 3 to 6 inch snowfall that we had, wound up being a big storm, a huge storm for Newfoundland. They wound up getting a solid kick in the rear with damaging winds. So here we are. This is for the weekend. This is our weekend system. Let me just back it up so you can see our first system here actually goes up into western Maine. So that brings up warm air into the Canadian Maritimes. But, you guys find a way to snow anyway. And then it's just sort of dry and calm. So here's that weekend system that brings some more snow to New Brunswick and also up into Newfoundland. Looks like a good shot of rain and a little bit of wind there. Storm intensifies a bit as it goes into Labrador. And then it looks like another system along about Wednesday, the 22nd of March. A lot of cold air continues to feed down into southeastern Canada. And then another one around the 27th, assuming the models stay consistent with what they've been showing recently. And by the way, on this particular one, which comes into the time frame of about day 8 or 9, which is around the 23rd, 24th of March, The GFS has had this for about 3 or 4 days, so it's kind of interesting that it sort of held on to this idea with something for the latter part of next week. So we'll see what happens. All right, folks, thank you again, all my new subscribers and my returning subscribers. I apologize, by the way, with terms of getting to the comments. I tried to get to some of them yesterday. It was a lot. I had so much to do. I just, I did try to get some time in there, and I'll try and play catch up today. If you are new to my YouTube channel, welcome, and please subscribe. It's absolutely free, and join my other 3,000 wonderful subscribers that have joined on my YouTube channel. And you can check out all the latest website posts at meteorologistjoechaffee.com. Links come up on the top here with these little cards that flash, so you can link directly. You can also link to Angry Ben on nycweathernow.com for the New York City weather perspective. And download my weather app and subscribe to my specific forecast for New York City, Long Island, New Jersey, Hudson Valley, Eastern Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. The app is free, and it's just 99 cents a month for daily forecasts. You get at least 2 a day and updates when warranted. And the link to the page that'll take you to the links to iTunes and Google Play right up here at the very top. All right, so everybody have a great day on Wednesday. If you're in the Northeast, dig out slowly and enjoy the deep snow that has occurred. If you're in southern areas of New York State where there's a lot of ice, my driveway is like, I have literally almost like a 3-inch slab of cement because of the fact that we had about 3 or 4 inches of snow and then hours of sleet, and then it all froze. It's like walking on concrete. I'm just going to wait for it to melt because I just can't. I just can't do it. All right, everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.